Madam Speaker, we have a side opposition here that accuses us of having a soft stance, except they themselves have no stance whatsoever. We tell you, Madam Speaker, what's extremely shocking is that they fail to realize the gravity of the situation. They fail to realize the harm that's caused to the women, Madam Speaker, under status quo. So what am I going to talk to you about today? I'm going to talk about three main issues. I'm going to firstly talk about this idea of, the so-called harms that exist versus the positive benefit, which is the active deterrence, and how we're preventing emotional trauma. And secondly, I'm going to talk about, why we think this should lie within the criminal domain. I'm going to analyze, the civil versus criminal idea. And thirdly, I'm going to talk about, how this is an affront to feminism. So let's look at, firstly the harms that they brought up, because, clearly you can see how weak their case is. The first harm that they brought up was that apparently it spoils the environment in the office, and Jayesh already rebutted that, and they had no response to that. So let's examine this a bit further, because what they said was apparently friendship in an office is conditional on whether or not a man can say keep a hand on a woman's shoulder or ask her out for dinner or whatever. What sort of a weird concept of friendship is that, Madam Speaker? Apparently their concept of friendship is a man asking a woman for sexual favors. If that's their concept of sexual favors, then I really pity their friends. But moreover, Madam Speaker, we tell you that even if we are clamping down upon this, even if the work environment in offices becomes that professional and you lay down a code of conduct wherein you discourage men from touching women and asking them out for dates, we're perfectly fine with that. We think it's a good thing, and we think furthermore that companies can function even within a professional environment, Madam Speaker, that in fact being professional always works and the employees will have a motive to work because of the profit and because of the bonus motive, right? So they clearly haven't shown how that's harmful. So the second thing that they said was, it's harmful to the woman because apparently she'll be emotionally tortured by the company to drop this sort of a case if they bring it to a court of criminal law. We say firstly, Madam Speaker, all those pressures even exist under their paradigm if women go ahead and try to sue their company in a civil domain. But secondly, because it's extremely shocking that the stance coming out from their side is that at least under a civil domain, there's a chance that a woman will compromise and say that, give me this payment and I won't report. We think that's not what we want, and that's what we said from our first speaker. We don't know why they're pushing for this. We think it's good if cases are reported because we want these sort of men to be rooted out, we want these men to be punished, and we want these men to be given these sort of labels. No response from that side of the house, Madam Speaker. In fact, we say that under our paradigm, there's a greater sense of deterrence rather than supervisors becoming more belligerent as they would have you believe, right? So that leads me on to the benefit that comes out from our side of the house. And the first thing that we talk to you about is about how it becomes that much easier for women to actually go out and report. And again, they had no response to that side on that side of the house. Because we told you under civil cases, women are reluctant to go out and sue their supervisors and sue their company because of the fact that they don't have access to state attorneys. What that means is that the cost is extremely prohibitive for them, Madam Speaker, and they're going up against the might of their supervisors who are really rich, who can afford the best of lawyers, Madam Speaker. That's why they're deterred. Under our paradigm, we create an effective mechanism wherein they can hire state attorneys and the burden on their pockets is low. That's why we ensure that they have easier access to reporting. No response from that side of the house. But moreover, Madam Speaker, we told you that we need to create deterrence. Why? We characterize the emotional harm that comes to a woman from being sexually harassed, something that they just could not deny, Madam Speaker. In fact, I don't think they can deny even in the third speaker. We tell you there's extremely grievous harm when a married woman is told that, you have to have oral sex with me if you want to get promoted, Madam Speaker. We think it's extremely damaging to a woman, even an unmarried woman, when a man says that, you have to come out for dinners regularly with me and perhaps kiss me if you really want to do well in this company. Or even if it's, say, just a colleague, and if they're so worried about, this policy being only for supervisors, we're more than happy to say that, even co-workers and perhaps even people who work below you, this policy should be extended to them as well. We don't think that's a big problem, right? So we tell you at the end of the day, they fail to acknowledge the level of harm, and we tell you that deterrence is what we create on our side of the house. Why, Madam Speaker? Because we give these people a potential jail sentence, Madam Speaker, but secondly, we put them on that list of sex offenders, Madam Speaker, which we think is an extremely strong deterrent. We give them that permanent criminal record, and that's when it actually spoils their chances of going ahead and getting employment in the future, or not being able to chicken out of this scenario by just paying out. The thing that Jayesh characterized to you, again, they absolutely fail to respond. We think it's a very, very strong deterrent, and this is exactly what will lead to a reduction in this phenomenon of rising sexual harassment, Madam Speaker. We think we're extremely proud to support that. So before I move on, I'll take Sanaya.
If bosses don't no longer treat women on equal social footing, within the woman disadvantaged by not being able to hobnob with her on the same footing as her male colleagues.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, we think that those are things that a company deals with, right? Like even in the status quo, there are some women who like choose not to, for example, interact very closely with their supervisors, and some women who choose to do it more closely, Madam Speaker. And we don't think that, like we think it's quite simple to have a certain set framework within a company, which is to say that, you know what, do not make any attempts to ask out your woman colleague for lunch or dinner, Madam Speaker, or do not make any attempts to touch them. And if a woman colleague so chooses to go ahead and ask her boss whether he wants to come out on lunch or dinner with her, we think that's a choice that she can make, and that's completely fine. We don't see how difficult it is to implement that. Sit down. So let's then deal with their most ridiculous idea and the most ridiculous stance, which is the idea that this shouldn't be a part of like the criminal domain, because apparently for two reasons. Firstly, it's ambiguous, and secondly, because it's subjective. Let's look at the first thing, ambiguity. They said that you're not clear about the nature of the evidence and what will happen. So if that really is the case, Madam Speaker, then every single case that comes into a court, based on how like concrete the evidence is, you should decide whether it's a criminal case or a civil case, Madam Speaker. Because clearly every case does have a great deal of ambiguity when it comes to the sort of evidence that's available, and we point to like of a number of examples like marital rape and whatnot, Madam Speaker. In fact, marital rape leads me on more nicely to the second criterion, when they talk about subjectivity, and they said that what one person might treat as being normal, another person might treat as being sexual harassment. We think we should err on the side of caution and create a standardized policy within companies when you try and remove any element of doubt, Madam Speaker, as to what actions could potentially lead to, could potentially be perceived as sexual harassment, Madam Speaker. And that's when you err on the side of caution and ensure that women aren't mistreated. And we think when you look at subjectivity, like every single case that comes into court is subjective. That's why you have people fighting against each other, right? Each one has their own view on what the hell happened in the court itself. So we tell you at the end of the day that it's important to realize that the primary criterion that you use to acknowledge to ascertain whether it's a case in the criminal domain or not is the degree of harm. And we've already analyzed that in two speeches. They've had no response to that, Madam Speaker. We think it's extremely damaging to a woman. We think it's time we send out a strong stance and deter all of these extremely despicable supervisors, and for fellow colleagues, we're extremely proud to propose.